Today, I'm going to talk about the Boss Katana. This series of amps I believe was introduced in 2016. I know I'm late to the party on this. There's a ton of reviews out there and they all say roughly the same thing, that this amp is amazing. This particular amp is the 50 watt Mark II. It's got a 12-inch speaker. This is an amp that you can take anywhere. So I'm going to do a quick overview of this amp in case you don't know the layout of this amp, and then we're going to go through some sounds and we're going to talk a little bit about, like, with all the amp sims and modelers out there, are the sounds still really that good? So with that said, let's just start talking about this amp. Okay, so let's talk about this panel. So the first section is the amplifier section. It's pretty straightforward. You have a knob here that you can change from acoustic to clean to crunch, all the way up to the brown sound. So I'm assuming that would be like a more traditional 80s kind of vibe, kind of like the Van Halen wound out plexi, I'm assuming. Then you have your gain. So if you want to give it a little bit more girth, then you have a volume knob. The next section is your equalizer knob. For this video, I just have everything basically at 12 o'clock. Then you have your effects section. Basically you have 4 banks. Each bank has like its own classification of effects that you can mess with. So the first one is your booster effects. These are like your gain, overdrive. That's controlled with the knob on the bottom. Then you have your knob on the top, which controls your modulation effects. When you move over to this section of knobs, and this is like your section where it has like all the other kind of auxiliary effects, like there's an octave effect in there, and there's a bunch of really cool stuff you can go through. Then you have your delays. So that would be controlled by the top knob here. And then finally you have your reverb. So in each bank, there's 3 slots that you can play with. So to access these effects, all you gotta do is turn the knob from the off to the on position, and this button will light up. So in this case, it's green, so that's saying that we're in the first slot of the bank. This is like an overdrive pedal. You can change that to red, which is the next distortion in line. And then finally I have another distortion, which this orange reminds you a lot of the DS1, which it probably is modeled off after that. I don't know. Now you can swap out effects depending on what you're looking for. If you plug this into your computer, there's effects control software that Boss gives you, and you can go through and you can customize what's in the slots in each bank. The other thing to note, this isn't Bluetooth, so you can't use a mobile device to actually swap everything. You have to plug it in using a USB-B type connection, which is like the printer connection. You got to plug it in, swap out everything that way, and you can save your presets, and depending on how you want to load it up. On one hand, it feels kind of behind the times, but on the other hand, too many options for me is overwhelming, and I tend not to make good decisions. I call this the Blockbuster syndrome. For those of you that remember Blockbuster, you would go in there and you're expecting to find the coolest movie, but you end up spending an hour and a half because there's just too much. However, with that said, I believe the new Boss Katana Air is mobile. It is Bluetooth capable. So I'm sure down the road, that'll be an upgrade to this amp for the newer versions that are coming out. They'll probably all have Bluetooth because why not, right? And then you would move on to the next section here, which is pretty simple. You have 3 channels. So you have your panel channel, which is the default, and then you have 2 channels you can save. So you can set up your settings and hold this down, hold the button down, and it'll save that preset however you want it to. I believe if I hold it down for like 5 seconds, it blinks, and now it's saved that preset. Yeah, it's saved. And you can also do this all on the computer as well. You can set up your own channel, your own presets, save it to whatever selection you like. You have a master volume. And then you have your power control, which is really nice. You can drop it down. I have it down because I'm recording at home right now and I don't want to bug everybody. I have it to 0.5 watt, which is pretty cool. You can go to 25 watts and then up to 50 watts. So if you're doing something with a band or something like that, you can set this up and it's got some oomph to it. And then finally your power. So yeah, that's the overview of it. It's not a complicated amp, which makes it very appealing to people like me. So let's plug it in, let's get some sounds, and just to show you some cool effects you can do with it. And then let's talk about it. Are these things still relevant? Would I use this in a practical setting, like in the studio or on a gig? Let's find out. Okay, let's start with some clean sounds. That was something that I gravitated to when I first got my hands on this amp. And yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. So let's mess around with it a little bit. Yeah, it does a really good job of breaking up when I dig in, kind of like what you would get from like a Fender tube kind of style amp. So yeah, let's your lead. Lead's kind of the same kind of. So you're looking for something a little bit more bitey. Finally, we got our brown tone, which is just kind of again, which is just like a wound out 80s kind of metal vibe. Okay, so at the beginning of this video, I asked the question, is this amp, the Boss Katana, still relevant? And it's a loaded question. Like, of course it's still relevant. There's a lot of amazing tech in this amp. I mean, the Bluetooth would be nice having this added where I can use a mobile app to adjust it, but it's not a deal breaker for me personally. And like I said at the beginning, stuff like that is distracting to me. I like being able to have like 6 knobs and just kind of get the sounds that I want and move on. I think that's why I never got into pedals when I was younger. I had like maybe 4 pedals that I would use, but everything was guitar, volume knob, into the amp. Like that was how I played. And that's where I like the Katana, because I can restrict on how many effects I have. I know how to get to them quickly and I can move on from there. So what am I trying to get at here? In a time where we're kind of hit a point with modeling amps where they all sound amazing, and in doing so, they're all starting to sound the same, it really kind of breaks down to what's your vibe in an amp. It's definitely got a vibe. It's got a feel to it, which I really like. And for that price point, Blackstar has the debut 50R coming out, and they're using different modeling technology. If you are looking to get into modeling amps and you want something but not sure where to go, do you go with something smaller and more expensive? Start with this. This is a fantastic amp for the price point. You get a ton of effects. They sound great. You will be playing with this for hours, and you can have faith that this is something that you will be able to use time and time again. Boss released this in 2016, and I would say this is still one of the most relevant amps out on the market right now. Anyways, let me know your thoughts. Let me know, what are you using for modeling amps? Any recommendations? Because this is a fairly new world to me, and I would love to hear it. Anyways, take care everyone. Thank you.